So, thank you. If you've not noticed, my time has changed with another person. So all those who are looking to have somebody else, don't be annoyed about that. It's me over here. I should have been earlier. And I'm going to do so that I'm going to start with something extremely personal, which I have never told to anybody else. And by coincidence, I was supposed to be before the discussion from Hus, and now I'm after it, so I don't have to describe so much about Hus. But this is a picture of my father and myself. And my father, Lauri Laitinen, he's a former CEO of Hus. And the similarities we have is that we both are very keen believers in data. Now, he had, exactly as you heard, the idea that you need to do good quality treatments, you monitor them, you need to be on top of things, better than the hospitals in Paris, and you also have to be sure that you make good decisions, though you keep the costs down. All this changed one day. It was a very warm summer day. He was with his colleagues celebrating a new PhD, and he had a stroke. But as all Finnish men, if you're half paralyzed, you don't show it. So he was not taken into the hospital within the 3-hour window, but instead he went home, and he went to the hospital, which he had led, the 23,000 healthcare professionals, as a patient. And at that moment, he also realized that all the data he collected wasn't really helped him so much, because he didn't understand what it is to have data from the patient perspective to make sure that we as individuals are able to give data to science and make lives better when we are in that position where we think we're never going to be in. So just to tell about the company I come from. I come from BCB Medical. We're a technology-driven data science patient monitoring system company. So what happens is that we've been recording patient treatments in 110 different disease areas. We have patient-recorded outcome measurements that are collected digitally. We have integrated systems, and this has been done through all the different hospital districts in Finland. Then there's another area which is much newer, and it actually just is to emphasize that we have now started thinking about other stakeholders also. We have research-oriented life science, we have medical technologies, we have patients, and what we do is we actually do analysis from the data so that it's easier to be published, it's more usable, it's more friendly to be analyzed, and this is done to groups of physicians, to individual physicians, to leaders of hospitals, and of course, to national comparisons and benchmarkings. So when things are integrated, you don't write things many times. You don't have... I was in Brussels, and the EU Commission said that it's great, you know, we have all these apps and we have hundreds of them coming out. Well, one thing we really realize is that when you have a patient data collection system that's integrated, it's actually something that is useful, because it's useful for the physician, it's useful for the patient. You have something that the patient, in a structured way, in prompts that are all validated, takes the data into the disease monitoring system. You have the data integrated into that. You have that type of visuals that the physician can use to discuss with the patient. And we also do analysis about how much time it saves. And we know that, for instance, in the rheumatology department, it's 11 minutes, where the physician can do something more useful than collect, again, the data that's used. And what happens after that is that you actually can start collecting data, and when you have enough data, you can start doing machine learning and artificial intelligence. But the key thing is that if that's only something that's going to be put on the desk and never used again, it's not so useful. So we realized that everything has to go back again into the integrated system. The registry reports, the artificial intelligence is only useful when it goes back into the systems and it makes the systems better. So, like I said, we monitor all the time. Is this useful? Are we saving something? And actually, the usefulness of all this is realized a lot when you have the situation that something has to be done, and there's nothing that is more important. So we have situations, as now I'm just taking a case, where saving lives is very important, and you need to see which are the patients that you have to contact immediately. So one of the cases that I received was that you had a staphylococcus and it was spreading, and we had patients that were very close to having a problem, so they should be identified quickly, which meant that finding from all the coronary patients who are those patients who should be monitored more would have taken weeks of going through manually. But when you have a good working patient system, you can do that same thing in a couple of minutes. So where are these systems used? And the funny thing is that we get so much discussions around here saying that we don't have time to write more into a database. Well, actually, the same thing that is saying that we don't have time should be actually saving us time. And double doing things is not really the right way to do it. So when we're looking into the systems, the automation of just sending patient data is something that happened by fax and nurses and all kinds of systems before. And now when it's automated, you save a huge amount of confusion and time. We also calculated that something like dictating is done, but it doesn't have to be done when everything's automated. And just looking at something that is 2.5 minutes in large organizations like the hospitals saves hundreds and thousands of euros when they're taken out. And we talked here before about having private and public centers. And there is a lot of collaboration because some of the work is outsourced, and the patient data needs to be going through as well. And it's really nice to see that in reality, it's not two separate things, but there is a very good collaboration between these two. And they really do work well when they have a common understanding that they're doing it for the best of the patient. So I have a background in health economics and patient treatment. This is the way to see drug persistence, to have something that really shows you immediately when a drug works or doesn't work, when the patient isn't doing well, in a way that can be documented and gives more safety. We see that scheduling, you suddenly have this automatic system that the patient knows that they can come over and discuss when it's needed. Like I mentioned earlier, the duration of the appointments are made shorter. And we can see also in many of the areas that the treatment amounts or frequencies have been less frequent, which of course saves then resources from the hospital. One of the interesting areas is, and this we've been talking with Citra about, is how do we have the possibility to get the interest of public for more research? And having the databases is one rather simple way, because it actually is nothing else than just marking the patient into this specific group that they can then be part of research. And making it normal to understand that the data is going to help them as well as it's going to be helping others. So I was asked a question about digitalization and what do I think about it. And what I did, because I felt that for once I'm going to be really personal, so I actually stole something from my husband. So my husband, Ulf, also works in digitalization. He works in a company that today was in Kauppalehti, because they got to have their recognition about having their steel nails and stuff in Elon Musk's SpaceX. So it's Sandvik. And he said to me that, can you believe that if you go into metal industry and you look at amount of money that is in there, and you look about the amount of people that are working there, you realize that most of the companies are really small. And actually they came to the conclusion that 80% of the companies are about 100 and less, which means that they don't have any possibility to use Internet of Things or data scientist or artificial intelligence or machine learning. So Sandvik decided that they want to do this platform where they put in all the data they have regarding how metal actually works in reality, and making the possibility for these small companies to actually innovate and do as much as the larger ones. And I thought it was really fascinating, because I realized that we do the same thing. We actually do analytics tools for individuals. It can be one physician, it can be a researcher, it can be anybody who's interested in the data. And of course, we use the data anonymized, so it's according to all the secondary data laws. And we have this tool, and it's so amazing to see physicians excited about the fact that they can actually now do their own analysis. One thing we also get to hear is that, yeah, but the data quality, you know, there's these physicians, they're not really putting in anything, and if they do something, it's wrong. Well, to be really honest, there's a lot of things I can control, but that's something that I can't do anything about. But we do everything in our power to be able to do that. We have internal analysis looking at outlier data, and this is Mila in my group, whose thesis is on missing data analysis. This is actually it's called selkärekisteri, the back registry. And the parts that are white are the ones that are not being filled. So we are analyzing from the questionnaires what should be filled and trying to understand why isn't it filled? And making the questionnaire so that everybody feels that there's useful data that's collected in. And on comparison to that, one of the most effective things that's been done, which was mentioned just before, is the national benchmarking. Because in that case, like in selkärekisteri, you actually have the possibility to compare the data on the same premises, and you can start looking at how can we learn from each other. I've been for the last 23 years in Sweden, so I just came back to Finland. And for me, this is something that I know the discussion in Sweden was very sensitive. You know, you don't want to hang out somebody for not doing something, and you don't want to say they're doing it wrong. But it really is something that you have to do, because when you're open to it, it's the only way that you're going to actually increase the value of this amazing work that's done. So I started by saying, what's my why? And I wanted to also say thank you to the company, BCB, but I also wanted to say that anybody who's looking for a why, I disagree that healthcare isn't sexy, because at least in Stockholm, all the good programmers, they're going to healthcare. Everybody wants to change the world. Thank you for listening.